And recently, I think at a conference, one of your proteges, Leslie Dance, was talking about how the brand, the company can no longer control the brand. You can guide the brand, you can set the stage, but the consumer, it has the ability now to really integrate themselves into what's happening there. So I'd like to ask you a question. You were one of the early adopters as a CMO of social media, to using it yourself. You know, I was in there early. Barry Judge was out there. You know, there's a kind of a dual question here. Number one is, how is social media now affecting the thought process in the C-suite and with CMOs? And the other side is, I'm a big believer, and whenever I speak to a company and telling the people in the C-suite, especially the CMO, that they need to have their own Twitter account, even if just to listen, even if just to understand, so that when someone in their organization talks to them about this medium, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, this YouTube, that they don't just think of it as a tool, they understand it better, and they understand how it can really affect people and how it spreads. You know, curious about your thoughts on that. Do you see it being more widely adopted?
Definitely, without a question, social media is impacting the way we do business, without a doubt. And you know, 1/3 of the people get it right away, 1/3 eventually get it, 1/3 will never get it. That's the way it is. And what it's done is, the customer's always been in control. We know that. And I think I find it interesting. Everybody's talking about now they're listening. What the hell were they doing before? You know, good companies have always listened to their customers. Good companies have always paid attention. And so what this is doing is it's putting more and more control back in the customer, which they had to begin with, except that companies put up all of these filters to make it difficult to reach them. There were 800 numbers with telephone trees and all these different processes. Well, what we're seeing with Twitter and Facebook and all these other social medias, it eliminates all that. It's knocked down every one of those barriers. In fact, I'd say 800 numbers, things like that, they're dead. They're over. The way in which you reach companies through this customer service escalation it's done. It's finished. And Twitter and Facebook and those have leveled the playing field that way. And so now it means it has a role in the C-suite. Now, what you need to do is, whether you're a CMO or someone that's in touch with the customer, represents the customer, I put in a chief listening officer. Now, not to someone to watch every single tweet, because you can't do that. You know, not someone to watch every conversation and every blog, but to really establish a process as to how you're going to do that. And so certainly, even if you don't want to Twitter on a daily basis, you should be engaged in it to know what's going on. So when someone says, hey, F you and your effing company, then you kind of want to know that's going on. You know, there's a person who's upset with you. And so you want to be able to reach that person. So have a way in which to do that. And certainly in every C-suite in the world, and I just returned back from a trip in Australia, this is a topic that's being discussed everywhere, but you have to learn that you're no longer in control of the brand. You never were to begin with. You had the illusion that you were, and yet legal and marketing and all these different people thought that they were. You're a steward of that brand in terms of a guide for the process, but it's really about that promise delivered, and in the end, the customer's always in control.
You know, Jeff, that's a great point. And, you know, one of the things I know we've talked about, you and I individually, and I think once at the Argyle conference with the CMO of Xerox and a couple others, is making sure that there's not this separation of church and state. That what's happening right now is there's these social media departments and they're not communicating with the rest. It's got to be 360 degrees throughout the organization. It's got to be 24/7. And the biggest disconnect I see now is between customer service and marketing. And I know we've had this conversation about, shouldn't customer service come under the CMO? Because how can you as a CMO be putting out this brand message about how you're going to make everything right and you love the consumer and you want to do what's right for them, and then they call the customer service number and the guy running that says, well, I can't be efficient that way, and I'm not going to do what they asked me to do, or I don't care what's happening in the social media channel. It's going to take me 7 to 10 days to replace this product or to answer this email. So shouldn't that same message being given in social media? So I recently wrote a post about, when you can't get customer service to speak to you, who are you going to call? Twitter. Because what's happening now, people are calling customer service departments, they're not getting satisfaction, so they're tweeting about it, and then they're getting immediate satisfaction, but there's a real disconnect there. So I'm curious to know, as I only have one more question for you after this, I'm not going to keep you too long, but I'd love to know if you see that happening, because I know it has to happen at a very high enterprise level, and it's difficult to get things done.
So the way I look at a chief marketing officer's role is, one, increase sales, but to also be the voice of the customer. So the chief experience officer, chief customer officer, that's the way I viewed my job, is to be able to take whatever the voice of the customer was and represent that and drive it through, whether it's product development, product marketing, even the customer service, which set over in operations, for instance. But I linked all those together, and I think that's what companies have to do. You know, when I was at a much larger company, you know, I had 800 and some people who were Twittering. Well, then it becomes about the governance process. And when I talk about governance, that's about what it is you're trying to represent as a company. And it doesn't mean that one person's doing it. You know, let 800 and some people, let 10,000, let 5,000, let 5 people be your voice. If indeed that's where you want to have that voice, because I think that's what you have to have. Just like when I think an employee is always on for you; it's never off. He's that person you always want them on. You always want to make sure they have business cards. You always want to make sure that they're talking about you because they should live the company. In fact, in my book, I talk about sell yourself. You sell the company, because I was criticized for that. You know, I was very, very upfront. You know, this was the face of Kodak for a long, long time. Not the prettiest face in the world by any means, but eye candy nonetheless. But that's what I say. Just super chunky size. But anyway, and so sometimes I was criticized for that. And I said, no. Someone has to be that voice. Someone has to be that way. And I wanted all the employees to be a face for the brand because they were representing the brand. So I think what companies have to do is break down the silos. And in fact, most people in the C-suite are looking for people who work across all silos and across all different groups. And I think I think social media is probably the best place to really do that.
Right. Okay, now this question you don't have to answer. I can get a smile, I can take a wink, it can be anything you like. But everybody's talking about what's Jeffrey Hayzlett really doing. I mean, he's out there, he's speaking, and that's great, and it's fun. And he's got this fabulous book out there, and I'm sure that, it's been lucrative for you. But everybody says there must be something Jeff's working on, and there's a lot of people reaching out to you. So is there any clue you could give us about something that you might be looking to get involved in? Or again, if you're not comfortable with that, feel free to just give us a big smile.
I just finished a proposal for my second book, which was just accepted. It went out to bid, so we'll be announcing the publisher very soon. We'll be announcing the title very soon. Looking to come out this fall or the winter. We're trying to see when the best framework for that is. And that'll be more around being a change agent in the companies, because we think that's very important right now, because all the companies need to grow and they need people who can just get things done. And so we want to talk about that phenomena inside of companies, small to big, because I think that the only difference between small companies and big companies are zeros. Same problems, same issues, and so forth. And then all I can say, Ted, is a face like this, it deserves to be on television. So we'll wait and see where that might be. But we have a lot of projects up in the air, and they look like they're all coming together.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. I really appreciate it. I say all the time, it's all about relationships, and I want to thank you for being a great friend and a mentor.